todavía la razón. Le pregunto a mi botella de cojuy si es posible se me inunda el corazón por ella, por ella, por ella, por ella, por ella saltaría el salto ángel por ver de nuevo su
Good afternoon and welcome to From Where We Are, stories of news and culture through the lens of USC and Southern California. I'm David Sosa coming to you live from Studio B in USC's Annenberg Media Center.
And I'm Lauren Worley. It's Tuesday, March 31st. On today's show, the Supreme Court overrules a ban on conversion therapy. Birthright citizenship could get challenged, and today marks the first Farm Workers' Day. All that and more on
From Where We Are. But first, today's headlines.
President Trump announced he expects a war with Iran to finish within 2 to 3 weeks. Trump has made similar projections since the U.S. first bombed Iran in late February. Although the timeline continues to shift, U.S. officials say the main objective is to ensure the country has no nuclear weapons. The latest escalation came today when the U.S. sent B-52 bombers into Iranian airspace.
A U.S. district judge ruled that construction on the White House's planned $400 million ballroom must halt. The pause allows a preliminary injunction from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which sued the Trump administration over the demolition of the East Wing for construction. The last time the White House underwent renovations was while President Harold Truman was in office in the mid-20th century.
California has seized about 37 million pounds of fentanyl pills since 2021, according to Governor Gavin Newsom. Over the last 5 years, the California National Guard's Counter-Drug Task Force has disrupted drug transportation along the southern border of California. Newsom has called the seizing of the fentanyl pills a new record.
A poll shows Mayor Karen Bass behind current city council member Nithya Raman, who leads with 33% of voters supporting her. The Loyola Marymount University study has Bass trailing at 17%, a shift from other polls that have showed her leading.
The USA basketball women's team selected Juju Watkins to participate in their spring training camp beginning tomorrow. Despite a season-ending injury last year, Watkins took part in the program's December training camp. Watkins won gold with Team USA at the 2022 FIBA Under-17 World Cup. And those were some of today's headlines.
Today is Farm Workers' Day in California for the first time. This recognition replaces Cesar Chavez Day. Chavez was recently exposed for having allegedly raped and abused women, including underage girls. Adriana Brady has the story.
East LA, and downtown, and was named for the farm worker union activist about 30 years ago. But now, things are different. The New York Times published sexual abuse allegations against Chavez earlier this month. They are so serious that immediate action was taken to rename avenues, schools, squares, wherever Chavez's name appeared. In Boyle Heights today, local activists and residents gathered to honor the first Farm Workers' Day. Maria del Barrio organized the event. She says what's important are the workers, the land, and the history.
Puede quitar el nombre, but no puede quitar la historia. Perdón? You can't take away. You take down the name Cesar Chavez, but you can't take away la historia que trabajan en los campos. Cannot take away the history of the farm workers working right now.
Del Barrio gives thanks to those who really deserve it.
Quiero decir que gracias a todos trabajando en los campos. Thank you all that are over there picking the fruit and the vegetables. And I want to say something. I cried when I heard the farm workers died picking watermelons for us. I cried when I heard those farm workers died. I love my farm workers. Gracias por todo el trabajo que están haciendo.
California lawmakers and LA County supervisors approved the changing of the name of the holiday last week. They want to focus not on one man, but on the movement and the farm workers and their contributions as a whole. For Annenberg Media, I'm Adriana Brady.
Offering marble cake and helping students write their congresspeople, several political student organizations took to Truesdale Parkway this morning. Nicholas Corral has a story.
The Trojan Democrats partnered with Vote SC and the USC chapter of Up to Us to talk about the national debt, which currently stands at almost $39 trillion. They asked students if they were registered to vote and had trivia questions about the debt. Izzy Delgadio is a senior majoring in political science. She's a member of Up to Us, a national advocacy organization focused on the debt. Delgadio says she wants to shine a spotlight on how the national debt will affect her generation.
We're really excited to just educate students on the national debt and what that will mean for them long term, and so that they feel a sense of ownership over their government, and really to, look to elected officials to make this a priority on the ballot box.
The national debt reached $38 trillion in late October and $39 trillion on March 18th. That's an increase of $1 trillion in 5 months. Ken Leonard Operaji is Director of Communications for the Trojan Democrats. He says Democratic candidates should be running on issues like the debt.
This is something that is going to affect us all in the future. We're already seeing it now when it comes to concerns about Social Security and what we're going to do in terms of dishing out more money to important social services.
Operaji says students may be pessimistic about whether their vote matters, but they need to know their vote indeed makes a difference. Up to Us had letters to Congress about the debt that students could sign their names to. Delgadio says Up to Us plans a focus group next week to talk about students' feelings on the national debt. For more political conversation, next Wednesday, the USC Political Student Assembly and Political Union will host the semesterly student debate between the USC College Republicans and the Trojan Democrats. For Annenberg Media, I'm Nicholas Corral.
On Tuesday, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that Colorado's law banning of conversion therapy is a violation of free speech. But what does this mean for the rights of LGBTQ+ youth? Nicole Figueroa has a story.
The Supreme Court has ruled against a Colorado law banning LGBTQ+ conversion therapy. The 8-1 majority solidified the decision, with arguments citing the law violated First Amendment free speech rights. The only dissent was Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. The majority sided with the licensed Christian counselor Kaylee Childs. Childs argued that the law restricted her from offering faith-based therapy to children. We spoke with American Civil Liberties Union of Michigan staff attorney Jay Kaplan, who runs our LGBTQ+ project. Kaplan's concerns outline bigger issues and fears of the decision's long-term impact.
You're going to find what we saw in the past, parents taking their kid to a therapist, fix my kid, change their sexual orientation, change their gender identity. And kids who undergo through this talk therapy, there could be harm that could come to them.
Kaplan also spoke about how the ruling could allow malpractices where unlicensed professionals take on the role of mental health counselors.
This form of conversion therapy, even when these statutes have allowed, like faith-based organizations where someone's not a licensed mental health counselor, like a pastor, to do this kind of conversion therapy.
However, Kaplan pushes for people to use their voices to speak out against the ruling, citing that there are support and remedies for the decision.
That doesn't mean we're totally helpless. We still have a voice. We need to speak out against this practice. We need to let people know that they have other remedies.
Colorado and more than 20 other states currently restrict therapists from counseling to change minors' sexual identity and their gender identity. They will all be affected by today's ruling. For Annenberg Media, I'm Nicole Figueroa.
I'm David Sosa. We're glad you're with us on From Where We Are.
And I'm Lauren Worley. It's 11 minutes past the hour. Coming up, an update on ongoing Middle East war.
Actually, an update on what's next for birthright citizenship in the country.
On Wednesday, the U.S. Supreme Court is set to discuss, not decide, on President Donald Trump's executive order which seeks to end birthright citizenship. Executive producer Amy Contreras spoke with Professor of Immigration Law at UC Davis, Kevin Johnson, who unpacked what the court is being asked to do and who will be impacted.
I'm here with Professor Kevin Johnson. He is an immigration law expert at UC Davis.
Okay, so we're doing a story about how the Supreme Court is weighing on Trump's executive order of ending which seeks to end birthright citizenship this week. I was just curious to know, like, at its core, what is this case asking the Supreme Court to decide on birthright citizenship?
Well, the Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to restrict birthright citizenship and to deny citizenship to children of undocumented immigrants and to temporary visa holders, student visa holders. Now, what the Trump administration is asking is something that's very different than how the 14th Amendment has been conventionally understood. The administration is seeking, in some ways, to roll back on birthright citizenship that has been honored for probably close to most of the time of the United States existence.
And can you talk about the arguments being made on who is subject to the jurisdiction in the United States?
The citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment, anyone subject to the jurisdiction can give birth to citizens. That's designed to exclude foreign diplomats. So that language in the 14th Amendment was a very narrow exception and has been interpreted as a very narrow exception, limiting birthright citizenship and denying it to the children born in the United States of foreign diplomats. It's a very narrow exception, has never been applied by any court or any president to deny citizenship to undocumented immigrants.
You mentioned how this would affect children of immigrant parents going forward, but I wanted to know who else would be affected and how would this kind of look like in practice?
If it does, many children born in the United States will be denied all the benefits of citizenship, including the right at some point to vote, the right to remain in this country because non-citizens can be removed. The executive order also might result in efforts to investigate the status of parents of people born in the United States and basically claim that they shouldn't be citizens of the United States. It would throw hundreds of thousands of people's citizenship into jeopardy by changing the law and denying citizenship to the children of undocumented immigrants.
I also wanted to kind of tell me like a little bit about the Wong Kim Ark case, which happened nearly 130 years ago.
The Wong Kim Ark case came along a few decades after the ratification of the 14th Amendment. And the claim of the U.S. government was that Wong Kim Ark, who was born in the United States, was not a U.S. citizen because he was the child of Chinese citizens. And the Supreme Court said, no, that argument doesn't carry weight with us. Wong Kim Ark was born in the United States. And Wong Kim Ark is an important case to look at because, as you said, it's over 100 years old, and no court has questioned it until now.
What would it mean for the court to reinterpret the case?
Yeah, no, I think if the court found that the executive order was constitutional, we would have a much weaker 14th Amendment. Now, all that said, I am cautiously optimistic that this Supreme Court, even though it's a conservative court, I'll grant you that, or is likely to strike down the executive order. This case made its way to the Supreme Court last fall, and no justice in any of the opinions deciding that case put into question birthright citizenship under the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment. Now, that alone, silence on the issue, don't want to read too much into that, but it is quite extraordinary for no justice on a very divided court to make a comment about the legality or constitutionality of birthright citizenship.
I wanted to thank you for your time, Professor Johnson, and hope you have a nice one.
Mi depósito de lágrimas está full.
The former leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, has been appearing in court in New York in pretrial hearings. Maduro was arrested by the U.S. military forces in January. In court, he pleaded not guilty to charges of abusing his position of public trust and corrupting once legitimate institutions in Venezuela, as well as to exporting tons of cocaine to the United States. Maduro insists he is the legitimate president of Venezuela, despite strong evidence presented by the Carter Center that his 2024 election was fraudulent. Val Vidal has the latest.
We are here today with former federal prosecutor and president of West Coast Trial Lawyers in Los Angeles, Nima Rahmani. We are going to talk about the expectations and legalities following the arrest and upcoming trial of Venezuela's former leader, Nicolás Maduro.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that we should talk about. One is the issue of immunity. Generally speaking, the head of state of a country is immune from prosecution, but it's important to note that that is the head of state as recognized by the State Department. Because the U.S. State Department did not recognize Maduro as the legitimate ruler of Venezuela, he can be prosecuted. There's also been questions about Maduro's arrest. Some people say it's kidnapping. The law does consider an arrest. Even if Maduro was unlawfully kidnapped and brought to the United States against his will, that does not affect the ability of U.S. courts to prosecute him.
Who will be paying for his defense? Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, who was also detained, have sought to use Venezuelan government funds to pay for their defense. The Trump administration has tried to block this. The judge in the case has yet to issue a ruling.
Generally speaking, you can't use the proceeds of a legal activity to pay for your legal defense. You need to show that the funds have nothing to do with drug trafficking, narco-terrorism. Now, the defense is arguing that Maduro is unable to pay his lawyers, and by not allowing him to use these funds, it is prejudicing him. Well, if he can't afford to pay for a privately retained lawyer because he doesn't have the money, or the money that he has was derived from illegal sources, the lawyer isn't paid, and the lawyer can decide whether to move forward without getting paid or to withdraw potentially and have a public defender appointed, just like anyone else in any other courtroom in this country if they can't afford to hire a lawyer. The case is not going to be dismissed because of this issue.
So, can you tell me what we can expect from this trial?
Well, at trial, expect to see a lot of cooperator testimony, wiretaps, surveillance. When it comes to drug trafficking cases, the people at the head of the organization, they go nowhere near the drugs. They place a call, they send a message, the product moves. So what you have to do to prosecute these cases successfully, peel back the layers of the onion, to have people that are lower in the organization testify against higher ups. And someone like Maduro would be potentially the head of the organization if the Department of Justice is able to prove the cocaine importation, the narco-terrorism, those weapons charges. So expect to see a lot of cooperator testimony, wiretaps, surveillance, that type of evidence, because obviously someone like Maduro, he's not dealing drugs on the street. If Maduro is convicted, he's likely going to die in federal prison. Some of the charges, like the weapons charges, carry a 30-year consecutive sentence upon any other sentence. So you have to add an additional 30 years. The narco-terrorism charge carries a 20-year minimum mandatory sentence. The cocaine importation charges a 10-year minimum mandatory sentence. So decades add up pretty quickly. And obviously, we know these can carry a potential life sentence. So even if Maduro doesn't get life, because of his age and because the years that we're talking about, he's going to die in prison. But I don't see this as any form of, change in government or change in really what's going on in the day-to-day life of most Venezuelans that have nothing to do with drug importation and trafficking.
Questions on who will be taking over the leadership in Venezuela are still on the table. The opposition seems to be behaving as if presidential elections were on the horizon. Maria Corina Machado still leads the opposition, proposing new elections organized within the next 9 to 10 months. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez has pledged to hold fair and free elections, but has not yet committed to a specific timeline. For Annenberg Media, I'm Val Vidal.
A study published by UCLA revealed that Latinos in California earn less than their non-Latin counterparts, and recent grads are too. Nicholas Corral has the story.
When the UCLA Latino Politics and Policy Institute analyzed data from 2019 to 2023, they looked at educational attainment, the labor market, healthcare, and much more. One finding? Latinas with at least a bachelor's degree earned a median $31 an hour. That's $10 an hour lower than the median of non-Latino women. Latinos, meanwhile, earn $12 an hour less than college-educated non-Latino men. That doesn't surprise Daisy Calderon, a 2025 graduate of California Lutheran University and a Mexican-American.
Sure, we've come a long way with equality in terms of job pays and stuff like that, but I think there'll always be a gap between ethnicities.
A gap that could be increasingly important as many jobs are lost to artificial intelligence.
I think a lot of jobs that would have gone to recent grads have been either eliminated or they've been replaced with a more like computer, like generative AI sort of positions. And I think it's just what there is available, I think, isn't well paying at all.
The cost of living is also a concern for Calderon. She said she's saving a large amount of money by having a remote job.
I think a lot of employers are still putting like entry-level positions at $19 an hour, but you have to drive like 30 miles there and 30 miles back, and gas is really expensive in California, and it's just not a sustainable career to be entering the job market right now.
That study also found that Latinos overall in California are overrepresented in construction and agriculture, while Latinas are overrepresented in arts, entertainment, and hospitality, labor-intensive and lower-wage industries. Both groups are underrepresented in professional, scientific, finance, insurance, and real estate roles, the study found. Over the next 40 years, Latinos are expected to remain 40% of California's population. The Latino population is younger than non-Latinos in the state, so they are expected to increase their share of California's college graduations and jobs. What happens with that pay gap remains to be seen. For Annenberg Media, I'm Nicholas Corral.
And that's all the time we have for on today's From Where We Are. Amy Contreras executive produced today's show. Val Vidal produced today's show. We also had help from Eleanor Morrissey, Leilani Powell, and Nora Rakosi.
Our audio director is Leslie Berenstein Rojas. Our board operator is Tate Harahan. And our live stream manager is Kayla Shu. Derek Renfro also composed our theme music.
Catch us live on YouTube at Annenberg Radio News, Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Subscribe to From Where We Are, wherever you're listening right now. Finally, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Annenberg Radio. I'm David Sosa.
And I'm Lauren Worley. From all of us here at Annenberg Radio, wherever you are, we hope you'll join us again for
From Where We Are. All right, Lauren, it's been a while
It has
since
been
we
a
last
minute.
talked. What did you do for your spring break?
I spent spring break in Palm Springs, and I kid you not, in a 24-hour span, I watched an entire season of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
I don't know if that's impressive or if that's sad.
It should be very impressive. I hope you're proud.